Donald Trump's return to the presidency has sent a wave of anxiety across liberal America. But what's more striking is the absence of the fierce resistance that once defined opposition to him. Unlike 2016, when his election sparked massive demonstrations and mobilization from the Democratic base, this time feels different. It's not just the Democrats' electoral defeat, it's an emotional and psychological one, too. The reaction is one of fatigue, resignation, and a strange acceptance of Trump's second term. The Atlantic recently described this mood as a psychic shift in American culture, where even major corporations are quietly abandoning diversity programs, and media outlets, once critical of Trump, are increasingly hesitant to challenge him. Even Silicon Valley's most influential figures are seen making overtures to Trump, and the narrative from some media corners suggests that American society is tilting rightward in both tone and temperament. But this perceived momentum is often illusory. History shows that political dominance is usually short-lived, even when it seems overwhelming. Power in democracy is never static. Politico pointed out in a recent analysis that early triumphalism often leads to overreach, especially among populist leaders with inflated expectations of their mandates. Trump's opponents shouldn't mistake his current influence for long-term control. American political history is filled with leaders who once seemed invincible but quickly fell from grace. Lyndon B. Johnson won one of the largest landslides in U.S. history in 1964, but bowed out of the 1968 race amid war and civil unrest. Richard Nixon resigned 2 years after a dominant re-election in 1972. Similarly, George H.W. Bush and Jimmy Carter were ousted after single terms. These examples reveal a consistent pattern. Power dissipates when expectations collide with governance realities. A key reason for this political fragility is what scholars call thermostatic politics. As explained by the British Journal of Political Science, the public tends to shift its views in opposition to the party in power, moving leftward during conservative rule and vice versa. This pendulum effect was evident during Trump's first term. Despite his electoral victory, he suffered low approval ratings throughout most of his presidency. And while his 2024 win surprised some analysts, it wasn't a landslide by historical standards. His margin of victory was thinner than those of Obama or even Biden in 2020. Crucially, Trump's second term may expose him more directly to public accountability. During his first term, internal opposition came from Congress, cabinet members, and even within his party. This time, with fewer checks, Trump owns the consequences. If his agenda falters, he has fewer scapegoats. And already, some of his early moves, like a controversial freeze on federal grants, proposed mass pardons for January 6th rioters, and an aggressive tariff policy that could raise consumer prices, have raised alarms, not just among liberals but moderate Republicans too. Populists often falter when required to govern rather than campaign. Jair Bolsonaro, Brazil's right-wing president, lost re-election after his pandemic mismanagement and environmental controversies. Trump lost in 2020 under similar circumstances. Governance invites scrutiny, and propaganda only goes so far when people feel the direct effects of policies in their daily lives. As the New York Times observed, partisan loyalty is not immune to empty shelves and rising bills. Moreover, Trump's second term creates a vacuum for succession. Unable to run again in 2028, at least under the Constitution, Trump's lieutenants will begin positioning themselves for leadership, pushing the movement into what political scientists call a purity spiral. In such scenarios, figures compete to appear more radical than their peers. This could fracture the MAGA coalition, alienate swing voters, and deepen internal conflicts, especially with conservative media feeding the echo chamber. Trump's personal brand, an eccentric fusion of bravado, showmanship, and grievance politics, has been central to his appeal. His charisma, as defined by sociologist Max Weber, is not easily replicated. Candidates like Carrie Lake or Ron DeSantis have tried to mimic Trump's style, but have largely failed to galvanize voters outside the Republican base. The Washington Post recently noted that Trumpism without Trump struggles to draw crowds. The GOP may find itself lacking a magnetic successor, and the movement risks collapsing under its own weight without his unique presence. On economic policy, Trump promises strength but risks instability. His renewed enthusiasm for tariffs may sound appealing in populist rhetoric, but economists warn of inflationary consequences. The Brookings Institution emphasized that trade wars often backfire, raising costs for American consumers and hurting small businesses. A chaotic global posture, including proposed freezes on foreign aid, could also embolden U.S. adversaries like China, who may seize the opportunity to expand influence in regions where American leadership recedes.